ASEAN Breakfast Call Dialogue, widening your horizons.
Hi, this is Arlene and you are listening to Durian ASEAN, the voice of discovery and sharing.
Hi, this is Gauri and we are at our ABC Dialogue today with a very, very special guest. It's
all the way.
Yeah.
Not from Somalia, but from London.
or both.
And he is Maanta. I hope I pronounced your name well.
You said it in a unique way.
So hi, hello. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well, thank you very much.
Yeah, and we are doing very well, that's true.
And thank you for having me.
Mm-hmm. So does your name mean anything, Maanta?
Basically, if I explain how my name first came about, I was in a group or a band, a trio, and we were called R. And then we basically kind of...
You're not a boy band, right? Like Backstreet Boy or
I think you just offended him, Arlene.
Actually, Arlene, I'm quite embarrassed to say we were a little bit of a boy band.
Oh, you see? It's the 90s, right? I believe.
No, it was...
everyone starts out with a boy band.
It wasn't that far. It was actually in the 2004 kind of 5, 6.
Oh, that's too recent.
So, yeah, but it wasn't like a proper boy band as such, but there were 3 guys, and we were called R. And then Maanta came because what happened was the other 2 guys decided that they were going to do their own thing, and I wanted to continue kind of like doing my music as well. So I continued the name R, and then Maanta came because Maanta was a popular song that I actually sang. So Somalis have a habit. What they do is when they get to know a new singer and he sings when one of his songs becomes popular, they just name him like Maanta. They name him with the song.
Okay.
It's kind of like a nickname, but it became my stage name as well.
So I would call you Maanta. Sounds very Arabic. I don't know why for some reason.
It's actually not Arabic. It means today.
Yeah,
R also can have a different meaning. It can mean like also lion. You see, the male lion in Somali is called R, and the female lion is called Gol. So I'm going to call you 2 Gols.
We are girls in a way.
No,
Gol.
Gol. Yeah, as in G, as like same pronunciation as a Gol. So Gol is for females and R is for males. So now you've learned some Somali, and I know you have a lot of Somali friends.
So it's our goal.
Our goal.
That sounds like Batman, a character in Batman. Our goal.
Anyway, let's continue to talk about your music.
Thank you.
You started off somewhat like a boy band, but not exactly.
Okay.
So how you became how you became the person you are in terms of your music and the kind of genre that you are involving right now?
I always liked music, and traditionally Somali people are very oral society. By oral society, I mean they're very good at like storytelling, and there's a tradition of like poetry as well. Even within my family, that tradition of poetry was very big and unique. So I used to have like my aunties used to like do like poems in the house, and like it was very common for people to do that kind of stuff.
Who are the famous poets?
In Somali culture, there's a lot of poets. Like when I say a lot, I mean, for example, one of the most famous poets was a man called Sayyid Muhammad Abdullah Hassan.
Okay, that's a long name.
Yes, and he was also actually a freedom fighter, and he used to fight against the British when the British used to colonize Somali territories. So he was like one of the most kind of like well-known. He was a warrior, a freedom fighter, but also a poet as well. So whatever messages he used to send to the British, he used to send them in a poem. And that time, they actually didn't used to write the language. So he used to have a messenger. And what would happen is he would recite like a long poem, which would go on sometimes about 20 or half an hour. And then his messenger, who is on a horse, would listen to that poem. And when he listens to the whole poem, he would memorize it straight away.
How can he do that?
That's the thing. I think it's because nowadays, when we hear these kind of stories, we become like, surprised because we rely so much on maybe technology now, and other times before they used to rely on like recordings. But the fact that they didn't have these facilities just meant they had no choice just to do it, basically, and to memorize it. And also practice used to make it kind of like perfect. So that messenger would memorize the whole poem, whether it's 20 minutes long, half an hour long, and then he would go to the British or whoever the Sayyid used to send the message to, and then basically he'll convey the message. And then obviously the British used to write some kind of a short letter threatening and that kind of stuff. So that's like, the traditional part of my my culture. So music was used mostly as a message for political reasons. And Somalis are so good at poems that most of the love songs even used to be like hidden political songs. And I was attracted to that culture, part of my culture, that I always wanted to become an artist. Yes, I started off as a kind of a boy band, like you were saying, but eventually I wanted to take it more seriously. But sometimes you have to do something that's quite popular and that people like, something that's quite simple, before you get more serious and you bring out more serious message. People are attracted to more the softer message first before they're attracted to the more serious message.
Mm-hmm. That's a very long explanation. So
But it's good to know how
good
you
to know.
started out, what actually inspired you to get to where you are today.
Mm-hmm. So where do you grow up exactly? Even though now you're based in London for most of your life, but when you grew up, when you were inspired by all these poems and all that, where was that?
Well, I mean, I left home or Somalia when I was quite young, and I was about 8 or 9.
Oh, so
And
you
then-
still have memory of
Yeah,
Somalia.
yeah. So I did have that that memory, and then when I came to
Which part of Somalia are you?
it was the northern part
What's the name?
initially. I mean, it's called Hargeisa. It's what's now called like Somaliland. It was there. So and basically that part of that time, music and culture, and also like plays were really, really important. So on the radio, you used to hear a lot of plays and a lot of songs from those plays. And my auntie, what actually used to happen was the radio only used to come on, I think, in the mornings for about 4 hours or something. And then what would happen is whatever new songs that we had, I would kind of listen to, and I used to stay with my auntie. And then when the radio goes off air, she used to encourage me to sing those songs that came on earlier on, because obviously we didn't record and we couldn't be playing again and so on. So she was like, "Oh, sing that
So
song."
you were
for
her
me."
recorder.
in a way. I mean, I think she used to do that because she sensed that I liked singing, and she was encouraging me to I think in a kind of a secret way, she could tell that I was really into singing, and it was her way of encouraging me with my art. So
And did that actually help you?
definitely,
That-
yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely, because it's not, you don't get a lot of encouragement in my culture if you want to do art. Yes, Somali people are very artistic in terms of poetry and so on, but when it comes to music, they actually kind of because of the faith, recently changes in cultural from the Arab cultures and so on, they view music as a little bit of negative. So there's a lot of discouragement. But I was lucky to have my auntie, who was able to encourage me that way.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. So how did you go from Ethiopia to to London?
The thing is, with Ethiopia, I mean, my family is actually from the Somali region, which is now part of kind of Ethiopia, and still some disputes as to that. But my family left Ethiopia, and then they went to Somalia, the northern part, and then we came to London. But when we first came to London, it was initially to visit one of my uncles who was a diplomat. But after that, the war happened, so we ended up staying in London.
So you were your family is one of the lucky ones that avoided the whole war.
Yeah, but we still experienced strife or issues in because there was like a war between Somalia and Ethiopia, and that's when some of my family still experience quite a lot of war issues and stuff. But there were still other members of my family who went through the problems of the war within Somalia itself. That was like in the early 90s. So still some of them experienced, but fortunately for me, I was lucky enough to avoid that part of the war.
We will talk about politics later on, but yeah, we will focus on music also in a bit. But before that, what was Somalia back then before the war? Was Somalia really? I mean, because if you look at the news, you only see like Somali pirates, and you hear story about people starving. In some, like the media only portrays the negative and radical side of Somalia. In fact, recently there's a news about ISIS where some of the Somalians were involved as well.
Yeah.
But if you want to go back in time, Somalia before the war, what was Somalia back then?
Somalia, I mean, I learned myself through history and proper records and stuff. Somalia was actually one of the most forward-thinking, kind of like strong. When I say strong, I actually mean economically as well as militarily. African countries, it was actually one of the most, at least I would say, at least even top 10, even maybe even top 5 in the late 70s and in the early 80s. I mean, my knowledge in terms of what happened and as to how it ended up where it is today is very limited. My knowledge of that side is limited. But obviously, war played a strong impact. And the fact that that war also continued also played a big impact in setting the people and the country back in so many years. And some of these images you're talking about are mostly in the West, kind of like media outlets. And it benefits their own agenda, because when they portray these countries in those manners, they have their own ideas and they have their own interests. Whatever that interest is, maybe they want to go in there because everyone knows Somalia is very rich in resources. And these images can be, I think it's up to people like me and other Somalis to come out like I am today and to tell you exactly what Somalia was like and how it really was. I mean, I recently went to Langkawi, and it's quite beautiful seaside, and it reminded me some part of the southern part of the country. It's just as beautiful because we have the Indian Ocean there, and we have the palm trees, and we actually Somalia also has the longest coastline in Africa.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Interesting.
Somalia has 2 rivers. Before the war, it actually used to export. The main export I was telling you earlier was like bananas and fruits and vegetables. Today, it still has more animals, and when I say animals, I actually mean like livestock, like camels and goats. It has more per capita than most other African countries. So a country like that really shouldn't, people in that kind of country should not be starving. But there are political issues that are happening that encourage these situations to go on. And when these situations happen and they put it on TV, it's because of their own agenda. That's the reason.
Mm-hmm. There's a long explanation on that. So, for you being a Somalian, how does Somalian identity really shape you as a person and also your music?
I mean, as a Somali, I have my identity. It's quite. I'm also an African, and far more importantly to me, I'm also a Muslim, and all these put together is still portrayed negatively. So, the more positive that I can be myself, and the more positive that I can show through my art, and I can share with other people, that's my goal really, and that's my interest.
And Somali culture is actually a very vibrant culture.
Yes.
Even though they are Muslim, they are not the same as Arab culture or any other Muslim.
Yeah, I mean Arabs
nations.
have their own culture, and Somalis being part of Africa, but also nearer to Africa, nearer to
The Middle East.
the Middle East, but also even like having the Indian Ocean, and there was a lot of different cultures that used to come through
And blend.
So where it is, because of that, it was a very rich culture, and like you said, a vibrant culture. And part of that vibration is to do with like the different, even like we used to have different ethnic groups, not necessarily. I mean, yes, there's a lot of Somalis and so on, but you can still see people from maybe Yemen and other parts. So it's kind of like a really good melting pot, as they say, culturally and even ethnically and so on. So,
as when you went to London, as maybe a Somali, was it hard for you to find your place there in a new country, a new land, especially being a musician? How did you work your way through that?
London is quite a good city, and you will feel at home more in London than in most other places, because it's a very metropolitan city. I think we were talking earlier on, and there's London has most ethnic groups from
All
from
the
most
different regions
exactly.
all over the world.
Yeah, I mean, they were even saying there's like schools in London where they actually speak more languages in one particular school than the United Nations have, Yeah, so I mean, it wasn't really that big of a problem living in London and becoming an artist. The problem was missing home or having really somewhere where you truly belong. And I mean, yes, I'm British, but still you're reminded the fact that you're different. Even just by going through immigration. When I go back to London now, they still remind you, that you're still a foreigner, even though you're British.
Really?
Yes, I mean, there are things that they do.
Small gestures and all that, is it?
Yes, I mean, even the way they ask you, I actually, it's quite interesting. I mean, we were talking about my music, but this one particular song and video that I actually made, because of that reason, whenever I go through the airports, the way they talk to you and how they treat you. Yeah, so there are those reminders.
We will take a short break. When we return, more information about his music as well as Somali culture.
ASEAN Breakfast Call Dialogue, widening your horizons.
Hi, this is Arlene.
Hi, this is Gauri.
We are back again with more discussion on globalization of Somali music. With us, of course, is Maanta. I have to emphasize the Arabic pronunciation of it because it's so cute.
There's no I think you're used to having a lot of Arabic friends, or maybe
Back in university, yes.
yes. I think Somali culture, like there are some Arabic words, but it's kind of unique still.
And with me, of course, is my beautiful host here.
Yes, Gauri. I think I already introduced myself, but that's okay. I like the second introduction. And I want to ask about your EP that we have here today. You have about 6 songs in there. And what was the inspiration? What was the whole message behind the whole album? What inspired you to work on it?
I had an album before in 2009. My debut album was called Hiddo and Dakan, which means culture and heritage. I didn't record or released any albums since then, but recently, last year, I completed my first UK tour, and it was the first done by a Somali musician. So after that, what I wanted to do was I wanted to mix live recordings as well as digitally recordings, just to also get an idea what people will like, so that next time when I record an album, I know exactly what to do. And the reason why I say that is because my African audience or people in Somalia, they tend to like digital music or more electronic music, whereas European people or people in the West who listen to who like African music, they actually like more live or acoustic or analog, sounding. So I kind of like mix those things, and that's what the EP is about, and it's called Somali Songs from the Diaspora.
That is the question that I want to ask, because the word diaspora itself is very fascinating. Where in the Asian region, when we think about a diaspora, we always think about the Chinese community. They are almost all over the world. You can see Chinatown, and you can eat Chinese food as well.
It's true.
Variety of that. But people fail to see that there's another group of community that is also, you can consider them a diaspora, and it's the Somali society.
Yeah.
It's interesting because I used to have quite a number of Somali friends, and I thought they came from Somalia, or at least in one area, but in fact they came from all over Middle East, and some even came from different countries in Europe and
America
and all that. And of course, some of them also live in other parts of Africa. And then it came to me, it hit on me that the Somali people, they are not as backward as a lot of people assume them, just because in the 90s they had this war that devastated the whole country. Even until now, they couldn't manage to form a legit government and stability. But at the same time, if you really talk to any Somali diaspora, you will realize that they have this longing to come back to their country and rebuild it. And what about you? What came into your mind, like when people ask you, how is it like to be a Somalian, and do you want to go back there and all that?
I think the reason why first I want to the Somali diaspora is quite big when you compare the percentage of the population of the Somali ethnic group in Horn of Africa. They estimate, I think there's like 2 million or something, and 2 million out of, let's say, 10 million or 12 million of the whole Somali population. That's quite a big percentage. And those some of them live in Europe, and some of them, quite a lot of them live in America as well. Quite big percentages. So when they come to these, like you say, other parts, like in Malaysia, to even further their studies and so on, I think the diaspora is going to be one of the biggest strengths that Somalia or the Somali regions in Horn of Africa will have when they go back, because it's a wealth of like educated people, and also Somalis are very good at business. That's what they were known, quite a good merchants and so on. So that will be a really good asset for for the Somali regions in Horn of Africa and Somalia in general, and they can really contribute a lot in that sense. And I'm one of them, and my goal, really, what I enjoy more, and I think one of my people's strengths is the culture. And I want to show that we have our own unique identity and culture, and our culture was very rich, and that's one of those things that we can export, whether through music, whether through literature, whether through even the film industry, which we really lack at the moment. So in all those avenues, that's something I'm interested in doing.
Mm-hmm. And one of the title of your song called Refugee, it totally depicts how the Somalian people are facing. Some of them are still refugees even after so many years, so many decades. So what this song lyrics is all about, and why do you write it?
I wrote this song with a group of other Somali musicians from Minneapolis in the USA, which also has a big Somali community. And it's about, even though you left home and you've lived in these other countries most of your life, and you have the citizenship, whether it's British or US citizenship, you are constantly reminded, like I was saying, that you're still a foreigner. And being a refugee is just one of those things, and that's what the song is about. You have, yes, we had struggles back in Horn of Africa, but we still have different struggles when you come to these other countries, So there's the struggle there's always different struggles, and you can't underestimate, because sometimes some people, they underestimate other people's struggles. Like, for example, people in Africa might think that, I wish I was in London or Minneapolis. They don't realize when you come to London and Minneapolis, you're still going to have problems. Life is not without any problems. And the ones in the West now, they actually want to go back. But the ones in Africa want to come this way as well. So that's what, the message is really like. Wherever you are, you're struggling, and if you're a refugee, maybe sometimes being back home might be better.
Mm-hmm. So back home in Somalia right now, do you have fans there? I have to ask about your fans. Probably they're listening.
I get a lot of. I went home, where I consider home is the Somali region, and and even in the whole of the Somali regions, or Somalia, wherever I consider home. But there's a particular place where my mother was born, and I was born, and there's a place called Jiga. And that's in Somali region, Ethiopia. I went home last year in 2013, and I even had a show there. So I have quite a lot of fans there, people who really support and like my music. And I'm sure it's the same in all the other Somali cities or towns as well, because I get a lot of feedback, even in Malaysia.
What is their feedback?
Mostly, fortunately, at the moment, it's quite positive. And mostly is, when are you coming? When are you coming to do a show for us? Because when I came to Malaysia, Kuala Lumpur with my wife, just for personal reasons. And one day I was walking in the mall, and these guys were like, "Oh my God, Maanta!" And then they followed me, and they're like, "Excuse me, yes,
They're Somalian.
Yeah, they're Somali.
Oh.
Can we have coffee with you, please?" Blah. So I had to send my wife and tell her, "Listen, this
We're shopping.
Yeah, exactly. You can go and continue with your shopping. I'm just gonna have coffee with these guys." And we had coffee, and they really requested.
Wow.
They were like, "Listen, we have a lot of students here, and most of them like your music, and please stay with us and eat there with us, And even if you can play for us, we would like it." And I had to explain to them and tell them, "Listen, I normally play with live band, and I don't have a live musicians here." And they were like, "Whatever you have to do, we want you to stay with us." And people do something nowadays called meet and greet, and they put on in their social media photos. I didn't want to do that. I'd rather share, even if I do PA, couple of songs for them, if I sing for them, that's good enough. And they were like, that's all we want. So the feedback has been really, really great. So imagine the ones from here who came from mostly from Somalia and even other countries. If that's how they are, then I'm sure it's a similar situation back home as well.
How did your wife cope with you? Like, did she knew you back then as a musician, or she's like, damn, I'm marrying a musician?
My wife is a good support. Yeah, she supports me with what I do.
So I bet she's your biggest critic. It's like, no, the pitch is too high. No, do it again.
Yeah, you're right. Actually, maybe you have a similar experience. I don't know if you're married to a musician or something, or maybe you have a musician.
So far, I don't
in your
have
family.
yet.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's true. It's good to have someone who tells you the truth. As they say, instead of like sugarcoating and saying, "Oh, sounds really great," Yeah, she's the one that tells me you need to go back and record that again because it doesn't sound good.
So Gauri, you know what to do.
I do. So what are some of the venues that you played in London? Because you said you just completed your UK tour.
Yeah, the biggest kind of a gig or show that I did recently was called WOMAD. I think it stands for World of Dance and Music, and it's like one of the biggest world music festivals.
All over the world.
Yeah, I mean, people come from literally artists, musicians come from everywhere you can think of, and I was lucky enough to take part in that. So that's one of the places that I played, and also I played in a place called Cedar Cultural Center in Minneapolis, America, which was recently voted as the best world music venue as well. So those were like my two kind of like biggest gigs so far. But when I go back to London, hopefully, inshallah, God willing, I'm playing in Trafalgar Square.
Oh.
Trafalgar Square is like right in the middle of center.
Oh.
It's like in the center. That's exactly where, like how in
Times Square, like Times Square in New York.
There you go. Yes,
Right.
Times Square, New York, exactly. This is Trafalgar Square, and they're going to have a day. I'm playing there on the 11th, and they're going to have a day called Africa Day on the 11th. So I'm playing it with my band.
Africa Day.
Africa Day, yes.
When is that exactly?
11th.
11th
of October.
Ah.
And we're playing at 5 p.m. So we're like one of the last bands to play.
We will keep that updated on our Facebook and Twitter. So, other question about your music. You play a diverse range of music, and one of it is called Afropop, which is somehow a spin-off from hip-hop. Is that true?
No, it's actually Afro Hop.
Afro Hop.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry about that.
I think it was an idea from some of my friends because they realized that I mix Somali music with quite a lot of different genres from the West. So it's like I'm kind of hopping from different kind of like genres, styles of music. That's where the concept is from, or the idea is from.
I see. So, example of Afro music, Afro hop music. What kind of instrument they use, or what kind of style of hip hop rhyming that they use?
I mean, rhyming is totally something different, and I will talk about that later. But this one is actually the fact that I'm still singing in Somali melodies, and I'm still using the writing songs in the unique Somali concept way of writing, but just the style and the rhythms are slightly more Western, and they're a bit more different to other Somali songs. That's where the idea is from.
And another area that I want to ask is about your other music in your album, Somali Songs from the Diaspora. You have a few titled, and one of it is somehow is titled after your name, Maanta.
that's the song that I was telling you, the first song I ever did before. A while ago,
Right.
I re-recorded it again.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, and Maanta actually means today. Yeah.
Today. And other songs, what are the concept of other songs? I cannot mention it because it's not in a language that I can
Yeah,
mention it nicely.
I can read them for you. Kene Gardaran. It's a re-recorded song of an old Somali song, and it means which one of us is to blame. That's what it means. Deqa. Deqa. It's a female Somali name. It's like one of the most popular Somali names, but it was also called after Somali Airlines was called Deqa. It had a nickname, and the nickname was Deqa because Deqa means someone who basically who everyone is kind of like pleased with, someone who makes kind of like happy people and stuff, So that song is more of a social song, and the video of that song kind of talks about when Somali people have issues at airports and so on. Maanta we've discussed, and the other ones, we've discussed before.
Yeah, we discussed already. And when it comes to your source of inspiration, of course you say your wife is your support, but when it comes to inspiration for your music, for your life, who they are or what they are?
Inspiration?
Yeah.
Mostly, people who are close to me, people who I relate to. Sometimes people look far away for like heroes or people they can look up to. But, mostly my mother, people like that, people close up to me.
Do you think it's important to be famous as a musician?
I mean, it helps maybe in selling your music and also like people coming to your shows and so on. But if you can leave that out, then really it's not that important. And I was given advice one time, and one of my friends said that talent is better than fame. And in a way, what he meant is like I should just concentrate on like writing more serious and more better songs and practicing more of my whatever instruments that I play than like exposing myself more. But sometimes nowadays, because of social media and so on, you have to market yourself anyway. That's the only way you can get your music and your work out there. So fame in that sense, yes, but I don't know about the other fame.
So what are the instruments that you play?
I play a little bit of the keyboard, enough to compose and record songs. But I'm also learning, and I'm still a student, and I play a little bit of the oud.
What is oud?
Oud is like an Arabic and Horn of African or North African instrument. It's a bit like guitar, and it's like one of the first. This is where actually even the guitar comes from. In European, they call it lute, and it's a pear-shaped at the back, and it's a paired strings. So the Somali version has 10 strings.
Oh, wow. They added more strings.
10 strings.
It's 5, but each one is doubled. So it's 2. And the scale mostly you can play on that is pentatonic. Don't know how much you guys know, but
Well, we just had someone who spoke about pentatonic gamelan the other day.
oh really?
So I do know it has 5 scales, but that's
The thing
about
is it's 5 keys,
Yeah,
5 key scales. And basically most even Asian songs
Right.
are based on that 5 key scale compared to Western or Europeans.
I see. So Asian, watch out. That's not the original ones. No, I'm just kidding about that. So last question before we end the show is about your music. So I mean, as you know, as you know, when it comes to music, especially on the mainstream music arena, it's not really that diverse. It's mainly pop songs and maybe a bit of rock and hip hop, of course. But I believe that music are more diverse than that, and you just explained to us Afropop, which is something new to us. But looking forward, if you want to talk about the future of Somali music, especially in the global context, what would that be? What would you like to express?
There are a lot of African musicians that tour. They tour around the world, and mostly they're from West Africa, places like Senegal, Mali. That music from that part of Africa is very popular with some people in the West, so in Europe, in America. One day I would like to see other musicians of Somali origin with live bands or even bands from that region touring the world as well. It's true what you say, pop and rock and music from the West dominates, even in particular in Asia as well, because that's what I hear mostly when I'm walking around, when I'm in the mall, everywhere they just play whatever, top 40 in the US or in Europe. But I think that's more to do with the language as well, and English being like a dominant and language, and that's one of the reasons. So exchanging music and other people learning your culture and so on, it will take time until, maybe, I think like, I don't know when other countries, I don't know if some other countries will become, some Asian countries will become more dominant, and maybe, I don't know, we'll hear maybe Chinese being one of the most popular musics as well. I don't know how things will turn out, but it's to do with the fact that English being a popular language, and people who sing from that part of the world kind of like dominating. But like I said, some African music is popular in the West now as well, so, and people still take ideas from there as well.
And where can people get your album if they want to?
Yeah, of course, you give us to us.
We are the exclusive ones.
You can get, if you want an actual CD, you can get a place called cdbaby.com. If you want to download it, it's on iTunes, it's on Amazon.
It's on Spotify.
Yes.
Yes.
It's on Spotify, so it's on literally all the digital distributions.
And do you have a fan page or any page that people
Yes.
can follow you if they want to stalk you? Just kidding.
It's Maanta.com, so it's AAR and then MAANTA.com.
We look forward to you coming back to Malaysia and perhaps perform in Malaysia.
Yeah,
I good Somali song.
I would love to. My stay in Malaysia has been really, really very eye-opening, and I loved every minute of it. It was my first actually visit to this part of Asia as well. So my experience so far has been really, really wonderful. Thank you for having me.
Thank
you so much for joining us.
Thank you.